Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I said I'm streaming live to YouTube now.
Fantastic. Hey, YouTube.
I'm sure they didn't hear that because the stuff was delayed a bit. Okay.
Hey, YouTube. Just telling you hello. Good morning.
We
Hi.
are ready. Love music and love life. You're listening to Soul Sisters on Smooth 98.1. It's a Wednesday. It's 13th of December 2023, and it's 30 minutes past 11 o'clock. You're welcome again to the show that is very concerned about women, their wellness, their productivity, a better mindset for them, and, well, more money in their pocket. Just healthy, wholesome, beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful ladies. That's what we do here every Wednesday from 11 till 11:50. And we get to talk about different things. In fact, every and anything, as long as the woman is at the center, then you can be assured that we will talk about it. Today, we are talking about boundaries, how to set and maintain boundaries in relationship. Now, if you would like to be a part of the discussion, we've got a WhatsApp line, we've got the phone line, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and most importantly, we have YouTube where we're streaming live right now. YouTube is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. That's the channel. So simply go there. You will see my face and that of my guest. You can drop your comment using the live chat option, and you can share with your family and friends. And you can also go back to the video later on. I have a special guest, and this is her second time. I remember the first time I had her as my guest on Soul Sisters. It was so explosive that we knew we just had to do it again. And I am so excited to have her this morning. She is an integrative therapist, and she is the founder and CEO Raising the Standard International. So you can guess that the standard of your boundaries are about to be raised after listening to her. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Queen Murielle. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh my goodness. I just think that you deserve an award for the way you do radio. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for having me. I'm very excited about today. I always say that boundaries is the foundation of mental health. Like the
Hmm.
first thing people get from me when they come to therapy, the first thing we discuss above everything is boundaries, because if we don't, we'll be in trouble. So I definitely think, without a shadow of a doubt, boundaries is the foundation, like part of the foundation laying bricks of healthy emotional and mental stability and your mental health in general. But thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Murielle. And I'm the CEO and founder of Raising the Standard International. It's a private practice that really helps people to heal. I personally specialize in like pain and trauma. But yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Thank you. One of the reasons I like conversations with you is that it's like a gift box. You never know what to expect. I mean, in your mind, you can have a template for how the conversation will go, but then you open it and boom, something else springs out. And I'm referring to how you started by saying boundaries are like the building blocks, the foundation for a good mental health. So let me take you
Yeah,
back there so that we can build up.
no
Why do you
problem.
say that?
Why do I say that? Well, first and foremost, I say it because it's true, but also because without boundaries, it is impossible. Let me give you a proper metaphor. Let's say if I was a surgeon, right? And I had to cut somebody open, during surgery. Before cutting them open, I would have to make sure that they have everything available to them that is going to cause them to recover well. I would have to make sure that after surgery that they have the right medication, the right people, the right nurses, because if I don't do that, then even after cutting them open and it's a successful surgery, the person may die, right? It's the same thing in therapy. Before somebody even gets too far in therapy, the first thing I do is I psychoeducation. So I teach them about boundaries, bibliotherapy. So I allow them to do extensive reading on boundaries as well. And then thereafter, I can go in and start helping them to heal from whatever they've been through, because boundaries is going to help them to say, I've been through this before. I'm not going to go down that road. But if you don't have any boundaries, right, what's going to happen is your entire healing process is going to be like soup. So you're going to be causing yourself additional pain, right? While healing. So it's pain from everywhere, all at once.
Mm. Now, when people hear boundaries, what comes to some people's mind is something that is quite restrictive and does not allow free flow, maybe of expression of emotion or self, depending on how a person sees it. But in a healthy way, what should come to your mind when you hear boundaries?
Self-love, self-care, personal discipline, protection, joy, peace, harmony. Any of
Interesting.
those, any of those should be the only things that come to your mind.
Hmm.
Let me tell you what people do, right? What people do is they put up a wall in their life after they've been hurt, after they've been traumatized, or maybe through secondhand trauma to watching somebody else be hurt and traumatized. They put up a wall, right? What they do is they think this wall is going to further protect me from ever being hurt again, from ever having to cry again, from ever having to go through, these levels of pain ever again, right? That's what they do when they put up a wall, right? Now, here's the problem with walls. Although that wall is protecting you, it's also keeping you hostage. So you as well can't grow. You as well can't bond with anybody else. So in therapy, we teach you, hey, don't build a wall, build a gate. A gate is going to tell you who can come inside and who can't come inside. And that's what people do with boundaries. They think having boundaries is having a wall, but a wall is going to keep you hostage.
Hmm.
You understand? So it's very important that they remember that.
Okay, interesting. I like the way we've started. And if there are things that you are taking down and notes and maybe questions that are coming to your mind as a result of what you're hearing, the WhatsApp line is open. WhatsApp is 0809 444 0981. So now let's talk about the different types of boundaries you think exist. I mean, I want to imagine that we've got something as emotional boundaries where, I don't know. Okay,
There are
let me
different,
not get
there
ahead.
are, no, 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 no. There are different types of boundaries. And I think people always mix them up. Let me just throw this back at you on radio. What boundary on radio have you had to keep to be able to do what you're doing well? I just want to do an example.
What boundaries do I have to keep on radio
Mhm.
for me to do what I'm doing well in terms
Yes.
of the listeners or the job? Now I feel like you just put me in front of an X-ray and you are scanning me. I am not the I am not the what do you
Okay, okay,
client?
I'm gonna take it back from you. One of the boundaries you keep very well is time boundaries, right? That's a type of boundary. You have to a certain time at all times to be able to be effective on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a time boundary. But you have geographical boundaries, you have personal boundaries, you have social boundaries, you have legal boundaries, you have like time boundaries, like I just mentioned, you have sometimes health related boundaries, you have financial boundaries. All of those are different types of boundaries.
So there's literally boundary everywhere.
Literally, literally.
Ah,
And it's
okay.
the only way to create like a safe and a healthy environment. Without boundaries, you can't have peace. Like peace would be a non-existent factor for you.
Mm.
It's the same way as people who literally put themselves at the bottom of their priority list. Oops, I muted myself by mistake. Everybody comes before them,
Mm.
right? So it means that they don't have strong personal boundaries. And then
So
they think they're doing something that is noble, but they're not doing something that is noble because what's really happening is they're destroying themselves to be able to meet up with the expectations of somebody else while, without them knowing, really neglecting themselves and causing themselves trauma.
so at what point you have to set boundaries? Because again, like you mentioned, someone might be putting everybody before themselves and they think, well, this is me being kind, this is me being nice, or this is me being lovable, likable, whatever, or being humble. So at what point does a person need to come to the realization that I need to set boundaries, or what are those signs that will be in your face?
I think that there are tons of signs, really, if I'm being very honest with you. But I think that what I would like the listeners to know before I start naming these signs is that whether you see signs or not, information is powerful. Information is extremely powerful. So while you're here listening to us, please have boundaries regardless. But let me start naming some for you. If you have a fear of being abandoned, like you're always seeking attention, and you don't want somebody to abandon, or you don't want somebody to stop being your friend or stop being in your circle, you may definitely lack boundaries because you're willing to be run over for somebody else. You have low self-esteem, it may be a sign that you don't have healthy boundaries because not prioritizing yourself enough to take care of yourself enough so that you can make sure that before you pour into anybody else's cup, your cup is poured into. If you find that you seek a lot of attention and validation from other people so that you can have their acceptance, you definitely don't have boundaries. If you're afraid of saying no and you're afraid of being assertive because of what may happen, you definitely lack boundaries. If you are codependent on people, that you need them for support and you can't differentiate between your needs and theirs, you definitely have a boundary issue. If you have a strong sense of guilt and obligation that I must do this, like this must happen otherwise, you may also lack boundaries. If you have been through previous trauma where you no longer trust people and you no longer feel secure around certain people, you may definitely struggle with boundaries. If you notice you have people pleasing tendencies and you're always wondering, like, how can I please this person? Is this person okay? Like, if you're always wondering that, you may definitely be lacking boundaries. If you have a perceived obligation towards other people, right? Where it's like, I have to do this, I have to do this additional pressure that you're putting on yourself, you may lack boundaries. And if you over identify with others where you are like struggling to like, it's like empathy, but it's like empathy times 100. So it's literally like you over identify so much that you can almost take on the person's problem as yours, then you also lack boundaries.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a really long list.
And
Ah,
it's not the whole list, but it's a list.
oh, okay. Well, I hope that list is quite helpful for someone to at least do some soul searching
Also
and
on my
intro.
Instagram, I posted it this morning in case somebody wants to go and look at it.
Okay. All right, then we'll take a breather. And when we come back, we will be getting into how you can, I don't know if enforce is the word, but when you decide to finally set boundaries, how do you get people to respect it? There is that part. And there is the part where you also need to be aware of the boundaries of others as well. We'll come
Yeah.
back to that right after this on Smooth 98.1. This is Soul Sisters, and we're talking about setting and maintaining boundaries in relationships. I mean, it's one thing for you to set boundaries, it's another for you to respect the boundaries of other people. So,
It's
how do
very
you know you are crossing people's boundaries?
that's a very, very important one. I could tell you that right now. I can tell you that right now.
Oh no. Oh. Jimmy thinking, damn, that's sad.
The smooth ride home tomorrow right here on your dial 98.1. I love my radio. Radio is my all-day companion. It's all about big songs. It's all about fresh news and information.
Just let me know when you need me to come back on.
Oh, in about 13 seconds.
Okay. Here.
Yeah.
Right here every day from 4 p.m.
Need I remind you that you can actually listen all day long? What you can do is make sure you're never, ever out of the range of Smooth 98.1. And what you can do is go live. You can go to stream live via the website. And also you can stream on YouTube, youtube.com/Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Right now we are live and you can be there. You can drop your questions or anything you'd like to say if you have been listening. It's Soul Sisters. That's what we discuss. Or that's the name of the show that runs every Wednesday from 11 till 11:50, where we're talking about issues that pertain to the woman. Today, we are talking about setting and maintaining boundaries. And my guest, Queen Murielle, who is an integrative therapist as well as the founder and CEO of Raising the Standard International. She has been talking about boundaries and how you know that you have boundary issues. I think that's an interesting one to discover. So she listed a number of things, not an exhaustive list in her words, but quite the list in my own opinion. And again, if you have missed out on this, you can go back to the YouTube channel later on to catch up on the stream. So before the breather, I mentioned that when we come back, we need to discuss how you can get people to respect your boundaries. One, and the other part is how you know you are crossing people's boundaries, how you need to catch yourself. So let's get started with people who have maybe taken advantage of you, they have been beneficiaries of you not having boundaries. Maybe they've been in your space for so long and now you decide, okay, I don't want to take this anymore. How do you get them to respect your boundaries?
That's a beautiful question because you can't get them to respect your boundaries.
Oh, okay.
You can't make people do anything. It's their choice to, choose to respect your boundary after you have said, hey, this is what I would appreciate. This is what I wouldn't appreciate, right? So you can assert your boundary, but the chances of somebody respecting it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. Do you understand?
What do you do then?
I mean, you can say, for example, if the person crossed it, like, hey, I mentioned the last time that I would appreciate it if you don't do this. And if they continue doing it, then you know they don't respect you. And because they don't respect you and they're not adding to the peace in your life, then they also don't belong in your life.
Just like that, you cut them off?
I mean, if you've told somebody you're not okay with something and they keep doing that very thing that you tell them you're not okay with, they cut themselves off.
Okay. All right, then. What about the other parts?
Let's pause here for a moment. What would make you keep someone in your life that does not value and respect you enough to respect what makes you feel safe and comfortable?
I didn't get that.
What would make someone want to keep somebody in their lives who does not value them and respect them, right? Who does not value and respect them in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable? Why would somebody want to keep somebody in their lives like that? I make this example all the time. If you have a baby, a newborn baby that you love so much, you're not about to drop your newborn baby with just anyone. You're not about to leave your baby with anyone just like that because you love your baby and you want your baby to be safe and you want your baby to be protected. So you're not about to leave your baby unattended, right? You're not going to do that. So why do people leave themselves with just random people who's not going to take care of them? Why they allow themselves to be in environments with people who don't love them, who don't care for them, who's tolerating them?
Mm.
That's going to impact their nervous system, and it's going to impact the way they feel, and it's going to change how they feel safe and how they show up in the world. Why be around people who are not emotionally available? Be around people who can't communicate. Be around people who can't love you well. Be around people who don't choose you. Be around people who are not kind to you. What would make you constantly choose to put yourself in an environment that does not value you and think that you're going to come out untraumatized?
So these are provoking questions. Let me bring a situation. So assuming you were in a relationship, when I say relationship, you were dating someone before now who the person worshiped the ground that you walk on. But before I even go to that, are there boundaries in marriages?
Of course.
What?
Of course. Nothing can work without boundaries.
So what will the boundaries in marriages look like? Just some examples.
They range from a lot of different places. It could literally be, let's start with some soft ones, nothing too hard.
Somewhat?
Nothing too hard, some soft
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
Boundaries in marriage could be discussing with your spouse how you deal with the opposite sex. These are our boundaries. Let's say if a girl comes over to the house, she can't be in the house if I'm not in the house. My friends are not allowed to come in the house and stay in the house if I am not in the house. Those are just like boundaries around the opposite sex. A guy should not call you at a certain time directly, or some men have boundaries that their friends can't call their wives for any reason and whatsoever. Speak to me directly. Don't be talking to my wife. Those are soft boundaries in marriage.
Okay. All right. I guess that already answers the question. So part of it, so one of the things I was going to ask is what happens when over time it looks like boundaries changed and you are
Boundaries will
probably,
always change.
and you already are in a relationship like marriage where you probably have the idea of till death do us part. So how do you manage such where you're already in a super duper committed relationship and this person appears not to be, in quote, valuing you anymore or respecting you like they used to? How do you handle such?
I mean, you can always talk to them. I mean, you always want to be married to somebody who's willing to grow, right? Let's talk about sexual boundaries. It's one I have to deal with a lot with clients, right? Let's say if a man wants to have sex with his wife, but his wife is not really up for it in that moment. And if she can't communicate, hey babe, would love to have sex with you, but I just can't, like right now, just let me catch my breath and then I'll come around and then we can make love, right? For example, right? If he's gonna force himself on her because this is my wife and you owe me sex, right? He's crossing a sexual boundary. And if he's not willing to listen to her, it means he's not willing to protect her. And if he's not willing to protect her, it means that he's willing to hurt her. And if he's willing to hurt her, she should not be there. And it's going to be a painful process to heal. You can't be in a place where you're going to be abused and neglected and shamed and emotionally abused and physically abused. That could lead to like domestic violence, etc., or even death.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Yeah. Now, still in marriage, I mean, that's a very touchy, not touchy now, interesting one. So let me refer you to that post you made some weeks back, I think, the 2-part or 3-part video. So let's talk about the boundaries that you think should be between single women and married men or single men and married women.
Excuse me. I think that it's important for me to note that a lot of people are unaware of certain things because they were never taught what to do. And although a lot of people think it's common sense is not really common sense. It takes a level of understanding and self-awareness to know what to do around certain people. Now, laying that groundwork, it's very important for me to mention that as a single lady, you have to keep in mind that at some point you may plan on getting married. And the seeds that you sow are going to be the seeds that you reap, right? So you want to be very mindful about respecting somebody else's husband, You want to be very mindful about the way you approach them, the way you talk to them, the amount of times you call them, the communication that you're having with them. I always say, from the time you notice that a married man likes you, the first thing that you do is you assert a boundary. You say, hey, I noticed that this may be going in a direction that I don't want it to go. I think it's important for me to reiterate that I really respect your relationship with your wife and the covenant that you have made with God. I would appreciate it if you no longer speak to me in this way. And if it continues for 0.3 seconds, you block and delete the person. There's no other way around it. There's really no other way around it at all.
That applies to single men and married women as
It
well.
applies to single men and married women as well. You don't entertain it. You don't play with it. You don't invite it to a banquet and let it sit down and have lunch and dinner. You cut it off the minute you realize you're laughing, the minute you realize that it has started.
Okay. If you're listening and joining us for the first time, you're listening to Soul Sisters on Smooth 98.1, and we are talking about setting and maintaining boundaries. My guest is Queen Murielle. She is an integrative therapist, and it has been quite intriguing. WhatsApp line is 0809-444-0981. That's WhatsApp line. If you're sending a message, remember to include your name and where you are sending the message from. But if you'd like to ask a question, the phone line, if you want to call, is 01-448-9981. That's the phone line, 01-448-9981. And of course, please turn down the volume of your radio set so that there is no feedback. We can get straight to it. Now, how do you get to be platonic friends with someone that is not of your marital status?
How can you be platonic friends? You mean somebody married being a platonic friend with somebody who's not married?
I can hear you well.
You mean somebody who's married, who's being a friend with somebody who
is not married. And this is part of the reason.
You just keep your boundaries. You think for yourself, you think about your strengths, you think about your weaknesses. Pardon me, you ask yourself, if I'm going to be friends with somebody who's married, what are my boundaries to ensure that I respect the covenant that this person has? Your boundaries may be, I don't call after a certain time. Please do not touch me at any point in time. This counts for hugging, holding, or any type of, anything like that. 3, I always, you can always keep the person's spouse in the loop of whatever conversation that you're having, so nothing is a surprise. You just have to look at your boundaries with people.
Thank you. Now, one of the reasons I asked that is it might not be a general thing, but there are some people who hold the thought that once you change your marital status, like you're single before as a lady and now you're married, there are some people who believe there are some conversations that can no longer fit in, and there are some ways you see things, and because of that, some people have actually cut off a relationship.
No, but they had to, because if somebody marries somebody and you knew the husband before he met his wife, you were at the wedding, you were there the whole time, no, and she is not comfortable with you, or she's not comfortable with something that you're doing and you're not changing, you got to go. You have to hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more. Hit the road, and don't you come back no more.
Okay. All right then.
Once the person gets married, they now become one flesh. Your opinion is second to their opinion, point blank, period. There's no way around it.
Quite interesting. We'll take another breather, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping this conversation up on Soul Sisters about maintaining and setting boundaries. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
This is very fascinating because there are some people who, this is very lovely in the sense that you recognize that this person is actually your other half, and what affects me affects the other person. But there are some people who do not see it that way. How do they deal with it?
You can't make them see something they don't want to see, and you still have to protect your union and your life. You're not responsible for anybody else but you.
Sir, I didn't hear you well.
You can't be responsible for anybody else but you.
Hmm.
Can't make somebody see something they don't want to see, or they can't see, or they choose not to see. That's completely of them.
Interesting.
Do you understand?
Hmm. Pretty deep. And I think if more people took this, maybe some relationship will be saved.
We hope so.
Maybe. I mean, just maybe. It's sad. You look like you did not get enough sleep.
Oh no, I did. These are things I inherited from my sweet father.
What's that?
I inherited like my eyes, like the way my
Oh,
eyes
no,
are
no, no,
shaped.
no. I was not referring to your eyes. I was referring to you yawning.
Oh no. No, no, no. Yawning does not always have to do with eating or I mean sleeping.
Hunger?
Sometimes, darling. But I think for me at the moment it's a combination of the temperature of the room.
Oh,
Um and I think it's more a combination of the temperature of the room.
all right.
And me sending something in between our little radio stops as well.
Sorry?
I said also with me sending something in the middle of our radio stops.
Oh, okay. All right. So we have barely up to 4 minutes to the end of the conversation. Yeah.
That's fine.
Love music and love life. This is Smooth 98.1. And it has been, I don't know the adjective to use. I would say intense. It has been an X-raying conversation, introspective, where you get to look at yourself and analyze some things and maybe watch some patterns. And the hope is that maybe after listening to this, you can go back to the drawing board. If you have a partner, you get them to sit and you talk about these things. And maybe if you have relationships around you and you feel, okay, what this person has been doing actually translates to them not valuing me. Maybe it's time to cut them off. And I think one of the interesting things that I took out of you listing the possible things that show you have boundary issues is not the fear of being abandoned by people or not wanting to let go, because the truth is there were a number of relationships you keep in your life and you're thinking, well, maybe this one can be useful one day or the other, and you keep piling them up, and before you know it, you're left with dead weight. My guest has been Queen Murielle, and she's an integrative therapist. You can join us on YouTube. YouTube is youtube.com/smooth 91 FM Lagos. Now, there was one part we actually left. I think you have answered it in a number of ways, but just to be crystal clear about it, you respecting other people's boundary as well. I mean, now this is not just about marriage. I mean, generally in relationships, work relationship, friendships, maybe you have been a certain way with them. How do you know without them verbalizing it? Remember, you mentioned something about they might not be able to get others. You might not be able to get others to respect your boundaries. But you, as a person who wants to be self-aware, what are those things you know that, okay, I'm crossing a boundary here, even if the other person did not exactly set it, because there's that as well.
You can ask a question, but you can always pay attention to body language.
Okay.
It's those two things. You have to understand if somebody does not respect your boundaries, they don't value you. That's how simple it is. It's just like somebody who's in a toxic relationship and the person cheats on them and they stay. The person ghosts them and they're still texting the person and finding out where the person is. The person hurt them and they're still calling for closure, right? This person has clearly showed you that they don't value you. And of course, you can reach out and say, hey, this happened and it hurt me. and you give the person a chance to explain. But once you had that initial conversation and nothing changes, you got to go. Because if you don't go, you're going to be the one that has to heal from the hurt that they have caused you. Because this person has clearly showed you, I don't value you, therefore I don't respect your boundaries. I don't value you, therefore I ghost you. I don't value your time, therefore I say I'm going to do something and I don't. I don't value the advice that you gave me, therefore you can talk to me for an hour of your time, but I'm not going to take the advice anyway. I don't value you as a woman in this relationship because I don't have the time to make enough time to even spend with you and be with you and to build anything with you. That's how much I don't value you. Now, if you stay in a place when you're where you're not valued, it says more about you than about the person.
Thank you. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better conversation on this issue. And I mean, I went back to your page to look at some of the list again so that someone who probably is joining the conversation for the first time understands what boundaries look like, and when they know that there are some porous boundaries or no boundaries at all, part of which you have mentioned as well. You mentioned that signs you don't have boundaries. One is that you are last on your list of priorities. Everybody else comes before you. You need to set boundaries. Number two is that you fear rejection, maybe be due to a fear of being rejected or abandoned. Number three, low self-esteem, which is self-explanatory. Desire for approval. Yep. And there is lack of assertiveness. There is codependency when you overly rely on others for emotional support. And there is guilt and obligation when you're feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt or obligation, making it challenging for you to say no. I feel like how to say no actually deserves another conversation of its own, because as
But
simple.
no is a full sentence. No, no is a full sentence. It's literally saying, I'm not going to participate in this.
Okay, no is a full sentence, even though it's 2 letters.
That's it.
Then you also have previous trauma, and there is the part where if you see that you tend to please people too much, then there is a problem. And the last one is that perceived obligation to fix others. And not to forget the bonus one, which is over-identification with others. Yeah, you want to belong to everything and you just want to be a part of everything. You might need to take it slow. I think the first thing, again, which you have mentioned, is that you need to first value yourself, right? That's where you now know that maybe you don't need to be this person who is like trying so much to seek validation and attention and to be stamped by others. First, have a self-realistic, what's the word, assessment of yourself, who you are, and then every other thing can fall in place. Thank you, Murielle. We are done for today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time as per usual. I'm really appreciative. Thank you.
All right, your socials again.
At Queen Murielle Loves. That's Q Queen, and it's Murille. Yeah, Murille.
You try.
Loves. Queen Murielle Loves. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being my guest. And on the other side, it will be Casbah at 12 o'clock, where we'll play new African music. Remember that you can find this video on YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth91FM Lagos. Thank you, Lagos, Nigeria, and world. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, darling.
Oh, you're rushing off.
Oh, you wanted to say something? I thought we were done.
Yeah, we were done. Yeah, so we sort of had some